See, you and Big Mama can sit around while y'all picking collard greens and you can talk to her and she can tell you something. And there's an old woman standing on every corner full of advice ready to tell you, girl, well, this is what you ought to do. But we have few fathers, few voices, few compasses, few teachers, few leaders, few guides to speak to us in the process. And that is why we get lost in the go through it. I'm not minimizing what you go through at all because you go through a whole lot. But just let me tell you, just so that you will know, since you have never spent not one day as a man, let me inform you quite clearly and emphatically that it is hard to be a man. That's why most give up on it, most quit, most faint from it, most fall because of it, and almost all of us die trying to do it. Oh yes, the devil is out to destroy men. If you look around this room, you will find many saged, aged, gray women. Go to your family reunions and you will see Grandmama and Big Mama and Aunt Kitty, and they're all standing around in the kitchen talking about, is that chicken done yet? I don't know, Mama, let me turn it over in a minute. Get that bread out the oven before it burns. But have you ever asked yourself, where are Grandpapa and Big Papa and Uncle Willie? What happened to Cousin James? What is wrong with our generation that there are few old men left? That means we have few compasses to chart the course and to lead us through the maze of trying to get to our destination on time. And to lead us, that means we have few compasses to chart the course and to lead us through the, that means we have few compasses to chart the course and to lead us through the maze of trying to get to our destination on time. We have many men who model to us how to get started, but few that live long enough to show us how to finish. Show us how to make it through the different ages and stages of life, because the challenges of a 20-year-old is far different from the challenges of a 50-year-old, is far different from the challenges of a 70-year-old, and you need somebody who's been there to coach you through the process and look you in the mirror and say, keep coming, boy, don't give up now. I know you lost your job, but keep on coming. Keep on, you can do this. Don't give up. Come on, boy. Come on. Come on. I know your feelings is hurt. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. No, you're not going to be able to do what you used to do 20 years ago. You're not supposed to. You're going to have to readjust and develop a new normal. Come on, come on, come on. If you come on, you're going to get through this. Don't give up. Don't follow her. Don't follow her. She's not the answer. She's a trick. Keep coming this way. We don't. Y'all don't hear me. Y'all don't hear me. But I'm going to talk to you tonight. See, you and Big Mama can sit around while y'all picking collard greens and you can talk to her and she can tell you something. And there's an old woman standing on every corner full of advice ready to tell you, girl, well, this is what you ought to do. But we have few fathers, few voices, few compasses, few teachers, few leaders, few guides to speak to us in the process. And that is why we get lost in the journey of becoming what we were created to be. We get lost in the process. Some as early as 15 and 16 years old get lost in the maze of masculinity. Some make it to 30 and collapse up under a bush of despair. Some are getting to the middle of their lives, changing their sexual orientation, giving up on women altogether, going after men, and you can't figure out why it is. There's nobody coaching us, saying, not that way, go this way. Come on, go this way, go this way. And I thought to myself that maybe the church should stop dancing for just a minute and stop speaking in tongues just for 5 minutes so that we can talk about some real issues. I wonder if it would be okay if we would stop hooping long enough to have an intelligent conversation about death climbing up into our windows. Jeremiah said, send for the women of Moab up into an intelligent. If we would stop hooping long enough to have an intelligent conversation about death climbing up into our windows. Jeremiah said, send for the women of mourning and let them think of a wailing, because and start wailing because our sons are dying, our marriages are crumbling, and 68% of African American kids are born into this world with no father staring them in the face, and 85% of men who are incarcerated report that they never knew their father or never had his touch or sensed his love. And so desperate for the touch of a man, men are doing freaky things and anything now, trying to find their father in anything that smells like a man. Oh, buckle your seatbelts. You are in for a real ride tonight. Have another chicken when we get from potato salad. It's going to be quite a meal this evening. In a real crisis, when I started writing Emotions, it is somewhat theological, but it's by and large just very practical stuff. I use David as a canvas on which I paint the chaos, the crisis, and the conquering power of the masculinity. I do it because he is such a broad canvas on which so many things can be painted that are relative to the issues that men confront today, because we get to see David from childhood, from the cradle to the grave. The Bible is explicit about his strengths, his anointings, but it is also candid about his weaknesses and his failures, because I cannot be mentored by anybody that has no sin in their life. Because my problem is, how can I be mentored by something that I cannot relate to? It is not just your victories that help me understand who you are. It is your frailties and your failures that convince me that if God could use you with all your mistakes, then maybe it might be possible that God would use you. So you look for your superheroes with their blue boots and their capes and their S's on their shirts, and lift them up and make them demigods all you want to. But I want to announce to you that Superman was really Clark Kent. It was not that Clark Kent was really Superman. The real strength of any man is knowing his own limitations, and you will never be powerful until you know what your kryptonite is. I am convinced that every man in this room has his kryptonite. That thing, that the sin that does so easily beset you. And if you are past your 5th birthday, you already know what it is. And I need to see you struggle with it to convince me that I can overcome mine. I don't need you to tell me that you have no problems, never had an issue, never made a mistake, because then I cannot relate to you and you cannot help me. You don't inspire me, you intimidate me. And besides, you self-righteous bigot, I don't believe you. You tried to make me spiritual, but all you really... You tried to make me spiritual, but all you really did was make me suspicious. Because I know you're hiding something. I use David because when you start talking about men, you cannot talk about men and not talk about fathers. And David had a tremendous struggle with his father, Jesse, that is evidenced in his life. Jesse's son, the one that God would promote to be king, was the very one that Jesse did not like. And the strife between the father and the son has all the world to do with what made David pant at the water brook after God. It is what I call father hunger, the craving that a man has for the affirmation of his dad. One smile from dad is worth more than 20 kisses from mama. Mama tells you you're wonderful even when you mess up. But if the old man nods at you and says, "It was good, boy," now you got an S painted on your Somebody. I'm not saying that mama should stop loving us. We have survived on the breast milk of your love, your nurturing, and your affection. I'm just saying that breast milk is not enough to raise a man. It's great for a child, but he'll never be a man as long as he stays stuck to your breast, drinking your milk. So you have nurtured baby Hueys. They got bigger, but they didn't get better because they never got off of your breast to find their dads, to find out who they could become or what they could be. Can I go deeper with this? Now, David is my canvas on which I paint, because in order to talk about men, I must talk about the fact that they need their fathers and what happens when they don't have their fathers. And David is the canvas on which I paint, because David is the first kid that I see that God called to be a king while he was still a kid, and said, I have found a man after my own heart. And that was one of the reasons Samuel had trouble finding David, because Samuel was looking for a man, but God was talking about a boy. Why did God call the boy a man? It's because God knew that he had the power to make the boy become what he called him. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And so I want to share with you that there is a king in every kid, and there is a kid in every king. And you'll never be the king that you were created to be until somebody looks at the kid in you and sees the king in you and pulls out of you who you were destined to be. So Samuel opened up his horn of oil and poured it lavishly on the head of David until all of David's clothes, stinking though they were saturated with the anointing of possibilities. And opened up his horn of oil and poured it lavishly on the head of David until all of David's clothes, stinking though they were saturated with the anointing of possibilities and potentials. And most men die with needles in their arms, sick, diseased, and in trouble, because nobody ever looked them in the eye and told them, I see the king in you. Because when somebody sees the king in you, it makes you control the kid in you. But in the absence of a kingly prophecy, you are left to be a kid, kids playing in the toy chest of your childhood. Oh, and at the toys we play with, toys. Where are my boys at? Every boy in here knows his toys. My brother said the only difference between a man and a boy is how much he pays for his toys. But some of the toys we play with have no price at all. If you count money as the only price you pay. But there are some things that you play with that cost more than money. It's your toys. The temptations of your youth. Toys. So, at the risk of ruining your reputation, my brother, I would ask you while you are sitting here listening at me talk, if you would be man enough to open up your toy chest and let's look in the box at what you like to play with when nobody's looking. Because somewhere in your toy chest, sir, is your kryptonite. And until you define your kryptonite, you will always be vulnerable to destruction. I think much of who I am today is the result of the fact that my mother had a proclivity of looking me in the eye and making me think when I was just a child that my thoughts were important. As she cooked her dinner and I sat by the table rambling on and on, mountains of meandering words and foolishness, she dignified my thoughts with her attention and made me think
that's why
she
my
cooked her
mom became
dinner and
my
I sat
first
by the
love.
table rambling on and on, mountains of meandering words and heaps of foolishness. She dignified my thoughts with her attention and made me think that I was wise when I was just silly as a fool.
Oh man, that's
by the table rambling on and on, mountains of meandering words and heaps of foolishness. She dignified my thoughts with her attention and made me think that I was wise when I was just silly as a fool. But the brightness in her eyes convinced me that there was something in my head worth preserving. So I tried many drugs and got stuck. I loved them and kept on walking through the drug phase of my life. When all of my friends died with needles in their arms, I resisted the needle because of the gleam in my mother's eyes, who somehow was able to see the king in me while I was still just a kid. Let me move to, are you okay? Bishop, if it's okay, let me go just a little bit deeper. I am concerned because most of our women, originally when I was getting ready to do this, I wasn't going to have any women come at all, just nothing but men. But when I started teaching it in my church, I was amazed at the reaction of women when I taught this class. The women were sitting on the edge of their seat, and suddenly I began to realize that most women have never heard a man talk.
That's right. They've never heard a
They've
real
heard
man
a
talk.
man moan. They've heard a man cuss, and yes, they've heard a man preach, but they've not heard a man talk. Because most of the time that a woman says to a man, "What are you thinking about?" He says, So for the few women who grew up in homes where there were fathers, they might have been present, but generally they were very silent. And so there's a mysticism around masculinity that is so pervasive and so overwhelming that the woman is so hungry to hear and understand what's going on with the man that she will give her body up and everything in it just for the cost of admission to provoke a conversation. And he thinks it's his great lovemaking that has her laying in the bed. But she's just hoping that when he gets through with all of his theatrics, that he might stay awake long enough to say something or answer some questions. Foolishly, he thinks that the greatest tool he has is between his legs, when it is really between his ears. I better stop. I better not go no deeper in there. I could really go there. Believe me, I could really dig it on out for you. But get the book. Get the book. Because there is so much that we need to say, and suddenly I begin to recognize that women need to hear what we have to say. You see, most of the things that women have learned about men, they have learned from other women. Girl, let me tell you how men really are. You can't trust him, child. Child, you know a man gonna be a man, gonna be a man, gonna be a man while she's curling your hair. She takes you there and she tells you about a man, and she is not a man and has lost her man, but she is your private counselor about what a man is. And what of your mothers who define masculinity on the basis of the man she had and left? And in the breast milk of her wisdom, there is pollution from the pain of her rejection that contaminates your perception of who a man is. And so you treat the man you have as if he were the man that left, and he leaves you sad because you don't understand that he is far different from the man who left you 5 years ago. And so I thought it was responsible of me that I would invite the women into this conversation. As I stood at the checkout counter in the grocery store, and I saw walls of women's magazines, Women's Today and Essence Magazine and America's Woman and all kinds of great magazines. They are absolutely wonderful magazines, and they give you all kinds of information. 5 ways to keep your sex life alive, 10 ways to make your husband come back home, 3 things that a man really wants from his woman. But if you will check, most of the articles are written by women. And then I understood after 28 years of counseling couples how many times I wanted to get up behind the back of the man that the woman was trying to win because the marriage was falling apart. And I wanted to say, don't say. I wanted to get up behind the back of the man that the woman was trying to win because the marriage was falling apart. And I wanted to behind the back of the man that the woman was trying to win because the marriage was falling apart. And I wanted to say, don't say that. She thought she was winning him, but she was pushing him further away. Written by women. And then I understood after 28 years of counseling couples how many times I wanted to get up behind the back of the man that the woman was trying to win because the marriage was falling apart. And I wanted to say, don't say that. She thought she was winning him, but she was pushing him further away because she doesn't understand how a man thinks, and she doesn't know how to talk to a man, and in her effort to win him, she is losing him, and she can't figure out why he is fading away. And so I thought it was incumbent upon me that when I wrote the book and when I did the conferences to include sections for women to read too, as I attempt to translate the language of manhood. You see, we speak a different language, and we approach things differently. Let me share some things with you, and I think you can see what I'm saying. When women talk, they talk in circles. It reminds me of a plane about to land on a runway. When a plane, it is. When a plane is about to land on a runway, it doesn't come straight at it. It circles around and around, and then it makes its approach, and then it makes its ascent, and it hits the runway. Listen to me, fellas. Most men don't understand this about the woman, that when the woman starts complaining about cutting the grass, she's really worried about something that happened at work, but she hadn't hit the runway yet. She starts talking about the grass. You went out there to cut the grass thinking that will satisfy her. You come back and she's still mad because it wasn't about the grass. She was sitting in the runway. She got to hit the ground. Talk in circles. Men talk in straight lines. I come in and I ask my wife, what's for dinner? That's what I really want to know. She says to me, well, I was getting off work and I recognized we didn't have nothing at the house to cook. So I knew I had to stop by the store to get something. I was going to go to Big Bear because they had a sale on. But the traffic was backed up all the way up 75. I had to go down 35 and up Euclid. I came up Euclid and got the chorus. Now you know I hated to pay full price for chicken when I knew that right over at Big Bear they had it on sale. But I went ahead and got it anyway. And while I was in the store, I saw some ice cream and some chicken. I ran into Fred's wife. Can you believe it? That girl is pregnant again. Anyway, I got back home. Can't you just say chicken? Circles, men talk in straight lines, specific issues, and get right to the point. If you're a woman pastor in here, this is critical information, because when you get ready to motivate the men in your church, if you approach them in a circular motion, you will lose them every time. You got to be straight, direct, and to the point. Hit the issue specifically. Put the points up front. Put your feelings out of it. Men don't understand you. A pastor in here, this is critical information, because when you get ready to motivate the men in your church, if you approach them in a circular motion, you will lose them every time. You got to be straight, direct, and to the point. Hit the issue specifically. Put the points up front. Put your feelings out of it. Men don't understand you. When you talk in feelings, you have to talk in facts. We're moved by facts more than feelings. We talk in straight lines. You talk in circles. Don't tell me that you have a feeling about it. Give me the facts about it, and I'll line up with you twice as fast. Put your feelings out of it. Men don't understand you. When you talk in feelings, you have to talk in facts. We're moved by facts more than feelings. We talk in straight lines. You talk in circles. Don't tell me that you have a feeling about it. Give me the facts about it, and I'll line up with you twice as fast. Now understand, I know you know me from Woman Are Loose, but just for the record, Out of the 30,000 members in my church, 46% are men. And there is a way to talk to a man that will get immediate response. And for more details, get the book. That was a shameless plug, wasn't it? Men talk in straight lines, women talk in circles. Women, and the reason that they talk in circles, that's not a criticism, it's an observation, it's an explanation for men. Because the Bible says that if a man is going to stay with a woman, he has to dwell with her according to knowledge. And the reason that we don't stay is because we don't understand. He will only dwell with you if he can understand you. That's why he wants to know what's wrong with you. And when you start crying and say, I don't know, it endangers his ability to dwell because he walks away confused. And when he becomes confused, he becomes frightened. And when he becomes frightened, he becomes withdrawn. And suddenly, he's physically there, but he's emotionally unavailable because he can't figure out what's wrong with you. Where are my fellows at? Am I right about it? Can I go a little bit deeper tonight? The woman processes externally, so whatever the woman's worried about, that's why she wants to talk about it. Fellas, you have to understand that women process by communicating, by talking. When something's really bothering her, she wants to talk about it. So she's ironing or something, she's talking about these kids are driving me crazy. I can't believe I got to go down to that school again, and I just got out to John Avenue. The reason she's talking about it is not that she wants you to fix it. She doesn't want you to resolve it. She doesn't want you to straighten it out. She's thinking about it. And when a woman thinks, she talks out loud. I know. I feel you. Am I right? Where my sisters at? Now, sisters, let me explain something to you. While you're talking about what's going on with the kids and how it's worrying you, it's driving you crazy, and it's getting on your nerves, and you look over at him, and he's playing with the remote control, and you look at him and say, that's what's wrong with you. You don't care about nothing going on in this house. It's our kids going to hell, and you sitting there watching a football game. Let me help you with this. Men process internally. The more something, listen sisters, this is real important. The more something bothers us, the less we say about it. When a man is really worried and really upset and really frustrated, this is what he says. Absolutely nothing. Because what you do externally, we do internally. We go in our cave to process the issue. And because you think that we don't care because we don't verbalize, you say we are not emotional. I say we are emotional. He cares about it just as much as you do. He just doesn't communicate it like you do. So the problem that you talked to him about on Monday, and he didn't say nothing about it, but kept playing with the remote control and looking at the movie, the flipping from channel to channel. Here he comes to you on Thursday and say, I've been thinking about what you said. And by then you done forgot what are you talking about. Here's the problem. We go inside to process. You go outside to process. Here's the problem though. Sometimes men go in and we can't get back out. And we get trapped on the inside because we can't find a solution. And when a man can't find a solution, he becomes in prison. In prison. I want to tell you what's dangerous. The most dangerous thing that can happen to a man is for him to be in prison. Solitary confinement. The very first thing that God teaches us about men, he says it is not good for a man to be alone. Look at Saddam Hussein. one of the most corrupt rulers of our generation, perhaps an Adolf Hitler of our time. This man who ruthlessly destroyed and killed masses of people while he ate chicken salad and thought absolutely nothing about it, is brought down to his knees, not by beatings, stabbings, or cuttings. They put him in solitary confinement, and he is about to lose his mind because it is not good for man to be alone. You can take a serial killer, a murderer, a rapist, a man who kills without any thought about it, somebody who can fight, kick you in your head and kill your unborn children. But if you put him in solitary confinement, he starts whimpering like a baby and crying in the night because it is not good for man to be alone. And the truth of the matter is there are men all around this room who went in their cave to process something years ago. Some of them went in the cave in their 40s trying to figure out why their father didn't stay. Some of them went in the cave over their first wife who left them. Some of them went in the cave over the job that fired them, and they've been stuck in solitary confinement for years. And the